Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, The Mobile Display Advertising Revolution, How Click-to-Call is Driving Calls and Customers. Before we begin, I just want to say that if you have any questions throughout the presentation, to please submit those via the chat box, and we will be taking any questions at the end of the presentation. My name is Catherine Buckholz. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at Dialogue Tech, and today I'm joined with Kelly Schultz, who is our Digital Lead. And we're going to talk about this mobile display revolution that really starts with the profound shift that's occurring in digital marketing and how that's shaping the way that consumers convert, mainly via phone calls. We're going to break down some strategies to attribute and optimize calls from display and then highlight some proven successes we've seen with doing this. So to begin, as marketers, we all have a stake in understanding trends in digital marketing and how those trends impact the way that we do business. And right now, that means understanding this profound shift that digital marketing has undergone. This starts really with consumer behavior. Consumer research is now mobile first. Nearly half of all shopping journeys contain some sort of action on a mobile device. This is across many channels. You have search, you have social, display, email. Just take social. I mean, 87% of Facebook users now access the platform from their mobile device. And email, 2/3 of emails are read on a mobile device. I know for many of us this seems like a no-brainer now in many ways. We are a very mobile-first society. We reach for our smartphone for any answer immediately. But these numbers just prove it, and it just proves the continued trend in how consumers engage with their smartphones. And because of this shift in consumer behavior, marketers have responded by shifting their spend to mobile. This year, in fact, mobile will account for more than 74% of all digital ad spending. And this is, again, across many channels. It's across search, it's across social, and it's across display as well. 2/3 of display ad spending will be mobile this year. And not only is all of this display spend going mobile, our mobile marketing is influencing other channels. After someone sees a Facebook ad, for example, research has shown that mobile searches will see a 6.3% lift. And take display. After people view a display ad, 27% go on to perform a search. So what this means is that marketers really can't afford to think of mobile channels in a silo. And this is especially true for for display. Display is very much an awareness tool. It's a branding tool, and you can see that it's influencing action on other channels, and it's influencing conversions on other channels. Conversion rates actually jump 59% when someone's search relates to what they saw in a digital or in a display ad. So clearly, display is making a difference, and marketers are recognizing that. This year is the first year that display spend has surpassed search spend. It is now a $32 billion market. And what is fueling this growth in display spend is actually mobile. You can see in this call out here that mobile display ad spend is set to grow 21% by next year. This is going to be a $26 billion market, up from $21 billion spent on display this year, mobile display spent this year. And that's clearly, one of the biggest factors, or the biggest factor in driving the growth of display ad spend. Another factor in the growth in display spend is actually programmatic. This is not necessarily a new technology. It's been around for a little while, but it is taking over the display market in a much bigger way. In this year, programmatic display will reach $22 billion spent on it, and that's up 39% from last year. And it now represents 67% of the total display market. So why is programmatic having such a big impact on display? It's lowering costs for marketers. It includes better targeting. It's really helping marketers get in front of the right audience at the right time, and all at a lower CPA than a direct display buy ever would do for them. And as you can see on this slide, mobile is also helping fuel the growth of programmatic. And that's very much obviously in line with what we talked about a little while ago with overall digital marketing and the trend to mobile. And so now 69% of programmatic display ad spend is mobile. So as more display spend shifts to mobile, the next step for marketers is really to recognize that mobile conversions also include phone calls. And this is true throughout the entire buyer journey. People call at every stage. They find it very, very important to their decision-making processes and even post-purchase. I think most significantly here, you can see that 62% of people value the ability to call when they're making a purchase. And this is especially true for mobile shoppers. They want to call you. Over 50% have actually called a business. And this is happening across many industries. Take travelers. Over 1/3 have booked a hotel over the phone. And auto shoppers, what is the first thing 25% of auto shoppers do? They call a dealership. So smartphones and click-to-call technology are really making it easier for people to call our businesses. And so not only are more people calling and seeking out the ability to call on a smartphone, but these calls are also converting to customers and they're driving consumer spending. Calls convert to revenue 10 to 15 times more than web leads do, and calls will actually influence $1 trillion in U.S. consumer spending this year. So the next question I think we need to ask is really which channels are the ones getting people to call? You know, a lot of these mobile marketing channels are getting consumers to call. In fact, 162 billion calls are expected from mobile marketing by 2019. That's up from 108 billion calls this year. So it's happening on search, it's happening on social. As you can see here, it's also happening from display. So display is set to drive over 28 billion call conversions this year alone. So I just really wanted to reiterate that display spending, as we saw before, has surpassed search, and this is fueled by mobile. That's not to say that search marketing is going away. It's obviously not. It's obviously still has immense value and utility. As we saw earlier, the multi-channel impact that channels have on one another, they all work together in mobile. So it's more about understanding the time and the place for using different channels, how to use each one, and how to get the best attribution for every lead and every conversion that your marketing is generating regardless of the channel. And because mobile is driving display's growth, that also means understanding how important a role call conversions play for today's mobile consumers. After all, these consumers are making billions of phone calls every year. So it's just understanding that and embracing that growth and that type of conversion from mobile marketing. So I'm going to now hand it off to Kelly, and she's going to take us through some strategies to optimize display ads for calls.
Great, thank you so much, Catherine. So what I really wanted to do was focus on how to optimize your display ads to drive calls and really mobile conversions. Display ads historically been really a way to brand your business and your brand online. Instead of spending dollars in television, more and more brands are deciding to spend dollars in display ads to really focus on that brand lift. So top of funnel, but also display on mobile can really drive that middle to bottom funnel as well. And so let's talk about some specific strategies. So emerging mobile display tactics, and I don't want to say that this has just come out in the past year, but these technologies are still fairly new in the display standpoint. Programmatic, spend on programmatic is going to reach $38 billion, and 75% of that is on mobile. And that's really speaking to the point that consumers are on their mobile device more. So it makes sense for brands, whether you're B2C or B2B, to spend more of your advertising dollars on the mobile device to really reach your consumers in their purchase cycle. Google actually coined this year as the year of the super shopper, and what that means is that consumers are researching brands online and products online, and they're not even as much loyal to one brand. They're often finding new brands to find, and this is really an opportunity for marketers to get into a new target market and really drive growth. Native ads. native ads haven't really been around that long, and actually by 2018, native ad spend is going to reach $21 billion, and that's over 300% growth in just 5 years. Granted, they have really kind of taken off with Yahoo and a lot of the content platforms, but native is a really good way to kind of squeeze yourself into that natural consumer scroll on their mobile device and get their attention with a specific content that's related to what they're already looking at. And click-to-call technology. So this is really focused on display ads on mobile and much lower funnel tactic, really, really strong in remarketing. And I'll get into that with some of my specific metrics. But it's a newer technology, and it's really driving people to click on a display ad whenever they're ready to make a purchase or get in touch with a brand, very similar to click-to-call and search. Building the right audience. Display is all about who you are reaching because most of the time you're paying on a CPM model. So you want to make sure that you're focusing on building the right audience. Now, you have all of this customer data, all your first-party data. So you want to make sure that you're integrating the data that you already have, the customer insights, into driving new audiences, into driving lookalike models. So you can use, we all have probably used email address to find lookalike audiences in our display targeting. But what about your call data? There's so much insight in a conversation. There's keyword spotting. You know location. You know the channels that they reached or that they already interacted with. So using that call data to really build lookalike audiences is a great way to really hone in your mobile display targeting and find the right audience so that you're maximizing your display budget. And then using more data for more of your internal data to build out contextual and PMP targeting. PMP is private marketplace. And so here you can really utilize your top converting keywords in search. So join forces with your search counterpart and really find the keywords, the non-branded keywords that are driving conversions. And the display team can then take that data and really find contextual sites throughout the internet to really target and serve display ads. And the same thing with using conversation insights from your phone calls. So using keyword spotting, understanding what products, what specifics customers are looking for will help fuel your display strategy in both audience targeting as well as what creative you decide to serve. Audience exclusion. So this seems like a basic tactic and maybe oh, of course, but I urge you to not waste your impressions, right? We all have a limited display budget. It's not finite. And we're all paying on a CPM. Make sure that, or most of us are paying on a CPM, make sure that you're using those impressions to really target the customers in your acquisition campaign. And if you're going to run a separate loyalty or re-engagement campaign, really break everything else so that you can measure them separately. So by excluding customers who have converted either online or possibly they converted over the phone, make sure you are excluding them from your acquisition focus because it'll really keep your budget tight in terms of driving new customers. Some mobile bidding optimization. So we have an audience now, and so how are we going to capitalize on that audience? Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can optimize your mobile bidding. A lot of that's by understanding your customer data so that you can segment and bid up and down according to the time of day that they are using their mobile device. Remember, this is going to vary by geo. This is going to vary by gender, by age, by their lifestyle. If they're in the workforce or if they're stay-at-home consumers, it's really going to depend when your customers are on their mobile device and in that mindset. So make sure you use your data so that you can bid up and down by audience. And then also customize your creative along with your bidding. Tip. If you are running click-to-call ads, make sure you have staff available to receive those calls when you're running those ads. So we run click-to-call here at Dialogue Tech, and we make sure to mainly run in the business hours. And then if it is after business hours, we have a specific voice message that the consumer receives so they know that someone's going to get in touch with them as soon as business hours are back on. So just make sure that you have a plan in place for running that click-to-call, because if somebody raises their hand and calls you from a display ad, your media dollars are working really hard. Make sure that you're capturing that. Placement performance. A lot of us I've been on the agency side and the brand side, and I think it's really important to take time to periodically review your top performing sites. So if you're running programmatic, you're obviously running on hundreds of thousands of different sites. But taking a step back and looking at that data, even on a quarterly basis, will help fuel your whitelist strategy. And so there may be a handful of sites that are really top performing. So you want to devote a specific budget test into those sites to see if you can get more gains from your budget there. And then in-app advertising. So I run both GDN campaigns as well as programmatic, and I'm currently running both. In-app on GDN can be a little bit scary if you're running on a CPC price structure because the clicks will happen a lot more and you seem to run out of budget quicker. But from a programmatic standpoint, and if you're running on a CPM model, you do want to advertise in-app because apps have a lot of customer targeted data, and consumers are spending the majority of their time in apps on their mobile device. I think YouTube is in the top 10. Facebook, if you're obviously running on Facebook, is number 1 most used app. So make sure that you are accessing apps in your programmatic display buys. Smartphones. We are running ads on smartphones. A smartphone is designed to be a tool to convert by using it as a phone call. Use a call as a main call to action. Test it out. It's really a great way for consumers to get in touch with your brand right away. And so I urge you to test different messaging on your mobile than desktop, because if you're running the click-to-call specifically, you want to guide that consumer through the most direct route to your brand so that they can get in touch with you, and your sales team or your team on the receiving end can help close that data quicker or close that customer quicker. Retargeting in using call data about retargeting. So if someone has visited your site and called, by using call attribution technology, you will know the page that they were on when they made that phone call. So you know if it was a specific product page, a specific location page. And so then you can actually use that data to fuel your retargeting strategies by bidding up on somebody who's already called your brand but maybe not yet converted. Using unique creatives. So if they're looking at a specific vacation or a hotel in a specific location, you want to serve up that creative based on the insights that you have from that person and include a promo in there. Really encourage them to convert. It's going to help fuel your retargeting strategies in display. And as always, customize your retargeting creative. Don't just blanket retarget. Use the data at your disposal to really build out unique messaging and unique sequencing to drive your consumer through the funnel quicker. Location targeting, be product specific. If you're targeting B2B, use B2B creative. Use lifestyle creative. Make sure that you are understanding who your audience is, what stage of the funnel they're at, and then serve up retargeting in that to best suit their needs. Using call data to target audiences that are likely to call. So how are you doing this? Or how are we doing this, excuse me? We can integrate call data with your data management platforms and your demand side platforms so that you can use all of your customer insights, all of your call analytics to really automatically fuel your display strategy. So feeding them into your DMP and your DSP will not only help your retargeting, it will also help fuel your lookalike audiences so that you can prospect new audiences that match your best customers. And another great mobile tip, hyper-local targeting. We do this in search. We take a lot of effort to set up local campaigns in search, and this is a really great tool for franchisees or for businesses that have multi-location strategies. You can also do this in display when consumers are on the go, they're using their smartphone. Use a display ad that is hyper-local targeted, and I urge you to then use a local phone number. In search, it is proven to get 3 times, or consumers are 3 times more likely to call. Same with display. If you are running hyper-local targeted display ads, use a local phone number. It'll really help fuel your conversion rates and improve your conversion rates. So some targeting and landing page options are optimizations to further drive more calls. Well, most of us, if we're running display, we're also running cross-channel marketing tactics. We're running paid search. We have SEO practices in place. We have social practices. We've got people coming direct to our site. So we have all of these different channels that are fueling traffic to our site and fueling fueling traffic to your site and fueling consumers to call. But you can use display to retarget based on all of these different channel data, right? So if they came from a paid search ad and called from a brand term, you know that they're further down the funnel. If they came from a specific product keyword in paid search and called from a specific product page, you can use that data to fuel your display retargeting. So make sure that you're, again, customizing your creative that is specific to the product or the service or really where they're at in that purchase cycle so that you can drive that customer to convert quicker. Again, I mentioned lookalike similar audiences. So we all have those high value and lower value customers. Make sure that you are fueling your display strategies to really lookalike and find audiences that are similar to your high value customers. And optimize your landing pages to drive calls. So at this point, I mean, it's been the year of mobile for the past 3 to 4 years at this point. So most of our landing pages are optimized. But make sure that they're also optimized to drive calls, because specifically if you have a long form fill or a lot of fields that somebody has to fill out on their mobile device, even if it is mobile optimized, it's just much more taxing for a consumer to fill out all those forms than to just click on the call button. So make sure that you have clickable phone numbers in all of your listings and on your web forms and on your landing pages. And use that message call now on your landing pages so that if the form is long and you're finding your conversion rates are much lower than you'd like, test that call now button to see if you can get that boost in your mobile conversion rates. And then always A/B test. Always A/B test your creative and A/B test your landing pages. Using tools like Optimizely, you can actually set up different goals. You can set up goals to A/B test form conversions. But you can also do that for phone calls. So you want to make sure that you're using or passing all of your call data into all of the tools you're already using to optimize for conversions, because a call is a very prominent conversion on mobile device, as Catherine mentioned earlier, and they're only going to rise as more people use mobile to do their research, do their shopping, and finally convert over the phone. Attribution. So this is always the key, right? We're spending thousands of dollars on display ads and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars and even millions of dollars on display ads. And how are you attributing display or how are you attributing your conversions back to your display impressions? So one, you have to make sure, specifically if you're running mobile marketing campaigns, you have to attribute calls back to all of these campaigns, not just display, not just search, but also display. If you're only measuring an online conversion, then you're going to be missing often up to times 50% of conversions. For my campaign specifically, calls are about 35% of overall conversions, and our form fields really aren't that lengthy based on some other additional ones I've seen. So, and we still get calls that are 35% of total conversions. And by having call attribution in place, I know what ads, I know what placements, I know what creative is driving those phone calls, so that I'm not only measuring the true impact of my display, I'm also able to optimize display for what's not just driving online conversions, but also those call conversions. And it's really important for marketers to make sure that they're measuring their true CPL and true ROI. Most of us who have, we have calls that come into our business. Great, we have calls that come into our business. By attributing them back to the channel and back to a specific point in the customer journey, you're able to understand, your customer more, but know how your dollars are really working in the digital landscape. And so you can, and if you know where those calls are coming from, you can allocate budgets differently. You can modify your bids differently, and so that you know what is really fueling people to to call your brand. So whether they're calling from a click-to-call ad in display or a click-to-call ad in search, or even once they click through your display ad or click through your search ad, whenever they call from the landing page, you want to know what drove them to call, what page they were on, what keyword, what ad, what placement did they see this at, so that you can use all of that data to really fuel your strategy and grow. We all want to grow year over year, quarter over quarter. So by using all of your conversion data and feeding it back into your display tools, you're really able to make optimization and allocation decisions based on this conversion data. And optimize for what's driving good calls. So we all have this in forms where we get somebody who fills out a form and the data is just not even something that we can reach back out to. It's not a good lead. And it's the same thing for phone calls. There are times when people misdial or people call a business and they actually thought they were calling somebody else. So know what is driving a good quality sales call so that you can really allocate your spend for what's driving those quality conversions and really weed out what's driving non-quality conversions. So that's really important to not just understand the quantity of calls that you're getting and where those calls are being driven from, but the quality of calls. Because if calls from display or calls influenced by display are driving a higher ROI, you can allocate your budgets differently. So it's just really important to know down to the day of week, time of day, the placement, the creative of what is driving quality conversions and the highest ROI into your brand. So I'm sure, I hope you have heard about this already. We launched Dialog Text for Display in October, so just last month. And it's really one of the most exciting products that I'm most excited about as a digital marketer for Dialog Tech. And it's really a complete marketing solution for optimizing call conversions back to display. Really understanding how calls are being influenced from your upper channel marketing, right? So view-through conversions. We talked a lot about audience targeting. What's the conversation whenever they've been impacted by a display ad? And really improving and increasing your conversion rates. Bringing call data into the multi-channel story and the attribution is going to be key to really giving your brand an edge above your competitors. And so this is a client or a brand that currently uses Dialog Text for Display. And so we got a quote from them, and it's really powerful because it helps them understand the impact display has on driving customer calls. I started my portion of the presentation with really display is both upper funnel and lower funnel, right? And a lot of times we have this main focus on upper funnel, and it's driving conversions from branded paid search. It's driving conversions from SEO and driving conversions from direct traffic. Well, are you attributing those call conversions that come from those channels and understanding how your display has really impacted it? And so Comfort Keepers has really taken that step further to really understand how display is impacting. I think they have almost 75% of their conversions are calls. I think it's right around 3/4. So they needed to understand how they can drive more calls into their brand, and by using Dialog Text, they're able to get that information. So how can you do this? Well, really, again, it's integrating your call data with the tools that you already have in place. So audience targeting, you're using a DMP and a DSP, so fueling or bringing that call data really right back into your DMP and DSP. And also to get that measurement, that view-through call attribution. So we all get those view-through conversions where we see hundreds of online conversions attributed back to the placement, back to the strategy, back to the creative. Well, you want to bring in those call conversions as well because that will lift your view-through, but it will also help you understand which ads, which placements, which strategies are driving consumers to call. As Catherine mentioned earlier in the presentation, consumers call at all stages in the funnel. So if you know what stage they're in, then you know what display ad really fueled that. And then the multi-channel attribution piece. So understanding the full customer journey, using your Analytics 360 product or your Visual IQ to really understand the customer path, right? If they're seeing 5 display ads before they click through on a paid search ad or come via direct, then you know and understand really how your display is impacting overall conversions and overall revenue. So I'm going to deep dive into these a little bit more. And so we have gone into audience building, but this one's really important because we already build lookalike models off of email addresses and off of characteristics that we have in our CRM tool. So building lookalike audiences off of your call data, or even retargeting callers who are further down the funnel with creative that is very customized to their point in the sales cycle, right? Because that conversation that a caller has already had with your brand is really powerful. You know basically their hesitations. You know what product, what service, pricing negotiations, and you can take all of that data and really fuel your display strategy to really drive them further down that purchase cycle so that you can have a true impact from your display on revenue. And again, don't forget to exclude past callers. If they are already customers, you don't want to retarget them with creative that is promo specific. Or if you do want to target them with like an upsell message, just make sure to break everything out in your reporting so that you can really understand how your loyalty campaigns, your engagement campaigns, or your acquisition campaigns are performing. View through attribution. So we all get, I mentioned in our reporting tools, in our display reporting tools, we get impressions, clicks, click-throughs, engagements, and then we get the post-click conversions, and we get the post-impression conversions, or the view-through conversions. And the view-through or post-impression are always much higher than post-click, and that's really speaking to the true testament that display is driving awareness and driving consumers to convert, but often days down the road or weeks down the road, and oftentimes through a lower funnel channel such as a branded paid search. But you want to know then which ad, which strategy, was it a retargeting ad, was it a prospecting ad, how many touches or impressions, influences did that ad have to have prior to getting that conversion or prior to getting that customer to call. So feeding all of that call data back into your reporting tools so that you can understand view-through conversions is going to be really powerful for your display strategy, and specifically for whenever you're testing creative or running new creative. You want to know how it's driving call conversions. And understanding the full impact of calls on the customer journey. So we touched on the multi-touch attribution tool before, and I've used odometry in the past, and let me tell you, well, now it's Analytics 360, and let me tell you, it's a super powerful tool because it gives you all of these different customer journeys, and it can show you what percentage of conversions would not happen if you did not have your display in market. And so by passing call data and call conversions back into your multi-touch attribution tool, you can understand what impressions maybe didn't drive a call or didn't drive an online conversion, and you can take those dollars and really fuel and reallocate them to the display ads and the display strategies and tactics that you're running that are making an impact on call conversions. So getting the full customer journey, I think, is something that digital marketers have always struggled with, and we're getting it now. We're getting more of this black hole, this offline conversion piece, and we can pass this data back into the MarTech tools that we are already using. And here's a quick example. So call attribution, how can we drive optimization efforts? So here's just a quick, some example user journeys, right? Somebody comes in on a PPC non-branded keyword, and it's specific to hotel, New York City Marathon. I know that was last week. So now you know, because it came in on that keyword, that you can retarget them with a display ad that's specific to hotels in New York City for the time frame and pricing associated with it. And so these consumers see this display ad, and they then do a direct or SEO visit, and they make a phone call. Well, if you're not feeding that call data back into your display tools, then that display impression wouldn't have gotten credit for that conversion that happened over the phone. So it's really important to make sure that you are measuring it, but then you can also actually take digital optimizations to run even stronger. Maybe you're running a promo messaging. You're going to heavy up in New York City in that time frame. So you're really using this data to fuel further optimizations. And another example, somebody possibly does click through your display ad. It's a San Francisco hotel ad. They then visit direct. They then do a PPC keyword, and then they finally convert from the PPC keyword visit. Well, without understanding if without bringing call data into your display tools, you wouldn't be able to understand exactly what ad was driving that call, because it was the first touch in this case. And these are just sample journeys, but I just think it's really important, and I want to stress the impact that you can have on measuring your display campaigns by integrating that call data back into your platforms and back into your optimization tools. Even the third journey I come up on, right? Email starts to get involved in this, and so all the channels start to work together. And so, but you're now understanding how all the channels are working together in terms of not just driving online conversions, but also call conversions. And so, increasing conversions by driving calls. So this is really a little bit of a lower funnel tactic, and I'm going to give you my actual data in the next few slides. But I'm running click-to-call, and it works really strong in my retargeting campaigns. I've also been testing it in prospecting campaigns as well to drive, and I do this on mobile only, but to drive customers to call strictly from a display ad. So you can see that I'm doing my targeting. I'm doing whitelist. I'm doing contextual, PMP targeting, and just normal standard retargeting. And I'm retargeting them with an ad that's specific to, or that has a call to action that's specific to driving a phone call. And so then they click on the ad, and it's just like a click-to-call search ad, right? They have an opportunity to not call but then visit the site, or they have the opportunity to call, and your landing page still populates in the background so that they also have a visit to your site, but they also made a phone call to your brand. So it's a really powerful way to drive lower funnel conversions. And so this is Dialogue Tech real life success story. I did a standard A/B test. So I wanted to do just get a strong understanding of how click-to-call compared against standard display ads. So I used the same creative, except the call to action was different. It was not call to start, it was learn more. And so here's 30 days of data. Again, mobile, targeted, prospecting, and retargeting. And you can see that on the engagement side, specifically for retargeting, the engage rate and the click-through rate is much stronger than just the standard retargeting campaign. And then also, we got 0 form fills from these campaigns. But we got 20 calls from the retargeting, and we got 62 calls directly from the prospecting. And by having this technology in place, I can actually then listen to the conversation. I can feed that data into my CRM tool, and I can optimize that data. So we started a standard running 7 days a week, and within a week of data, I was able to filter it down to really bidding up on the days that I was finding the calls were the highest quality, and then I was able to start filtering out when, or reallocating budget to when I could get more and improve it. And so what I've actually been finding is that the retargeting has just continued to improve month over month. And so it's been a real game changer for us to really see that direct engagement. And then using Google Analytics, right? So these are my display campaigns. However you name them, I'm sure is in your own way. But again, you can see the session data. You can see I targeted new users, right? I got a whole bunch of new people. My bounce rate, average site duration, and then the volume of calls. And so the volume of calls on the click-to-call was just much, much stronger than the form fill because they were specifically on mobile device. So feeding all of this call data back into all of the tools that you're already using is a really powerful way to fuel your optimization strategy. And again, I talked about listening to calls, right? So this is specifically from my click-to-call display campaign. And so you can see that I had phone labels, and I knew exactly what the creative was. I knew if it was retargeting or prospecting, and I knew the creative size. And so then I also knew their session ID, and I was able to play or email the recording so that I could understand what the conversation was and really optimize my campaigns. And so that's really the name of the game here, is getting as much data into the platforms that you're using already so that you can fuel your strategy, so that you can optimize your budget, get your best CPA, and drive the strongest ROI. So no longer do you want this, do you want to just measure online conversions? You want to bring your call conversions in as well, because like I said, it could be up to 50% of your conversions. And Catherine mentioned early on, right, the industries, the percent of people that convert over the phone is rising because of the usage on mobile. So as we shift more dollars to mobile, we just need to make sure that we are accounting for all conversions, including phone calls. And so with that, we're going to wrap it up and take some questions. And of course, if you would like any type of demo or more information on using Dialog Tech for Display, please reach out to us, and we will absolutely get you set up with a solutions consultant so that you can understand how Dialog Tech for Display can really fit into your display campaigns and be a solution to help optimize your CPA.
All right, thank you so much, Kelly. So what we're going to do now is just take some questions. We've had some coming in, some good ones coming in. And if you have any other ones that come up while we're taking questions, please feel free to keep sending them in via the chat. So the first one here says that you mentioned integrating data with your multi-touch attribution platforms. What kind of data exactly would that give you?
Yeah, so just the same way that you see your online conversions, right, you can bring your call conversion data back into it. So you can initially do count, but you can also add filters on it. So if a keyword or if a conversation had the keyword appointment in it, and you know that appointments were a conversion for you, then you can just feed that data back into it as well. You can really add specific filtering so that you're getting the most quality conversions fed back into your multi-touch tool. And then it's really going to be similar in how you measure your path for online conversions. It's just bringing in that offline call data and really plugging it into the customer journey based on where they make the phone call.
Great. Someone else was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about building lookalike audiences from callers. Yeah, so lookalike audiences are really strong. You're not going to have, in most cases, you won't have a huge reach on that because you're so targeted, but that's okay because you want to build lookalike audiences that are based on your high-value customer. So by feeding in your CRM data and by feeding in that call data into your DMP, you're really going to be able to bid differently on those lookalike models. You're going to be able to serve up different creatives and really get the most out of that, and hopefully then all the conversions will come in and you'll get new customers that are high value, similar to the ones that you currently have in your database. Cool. So someone had a question about if we've seen the quick serve industry, franchisees in the quick serve industry be successful in local targeting. I don't know that we've worked with quick service restaurants, but I mean we can maybe speak to some franchisee local targeting.
Yeah, so franchisees definitely see really strong success in local targeting. And I would say also another good tip for local targeting is running social campaigns. And again, make sure to attribute your call. Actually, Facebook has a local specific targeting campaign that you can do up to a 50-mile radius, and I've seen this work really well for local franchisees. And you can either do a call to action of get directions or a call now call to action, and that's what's really powerful in driving people to that business, to that specific franchise. I haven't worked with any quick service restaurants, but I know that for general franchisees and brands that have multi-location, both hyperlocal search, hyperlocal social, and hyperlocal display campaigns work really well together.
Great, thank you. We also have someone that had asked if you can attribute cross-device.
Yeah, so you can attribute cross-device because you want to understand, right, if somebody's seeing your display ads on desktop and then later do a search on their mobile phone and call from that search, you want to make sure that that display ad gets the credit. That is going to be feeding that call data, though, back into your multi-touch attribution tool. So that's going to be key in that sense, and to make sure that you get that data. It's also, actually, though, Google Analytics and Google AdWords have made some leaps and bounds recently in terms of measuring cross-device. I think there is some limitations to it, but if you feed your call conversion data back into your AdWords, back into your analytics, you'll get some cross-device measurement that way as well. Although Google Analytics doesn't measure impressions all that well unless you have the premium version. But Google AdWords, if you're running GDN, it's really powerful.
Great. I'm going to paraphrase this one. I think basically what they want to try and understand is exactly how view-through attribution actually works.
Yeah. So view-through attribution is really it's really a way to measure the branding impact of your display ads, right? So if somebody sees your ad, it serves up your ad in whatever placement or whatever creative size that you're running, and they later convert, not they didn't click to the display ad, but they later, in 30 days, 7 days, whatever the time frame may be based on the customer journey and customer life cycle, convert through a direct visit or a paid search click. And so, but that first touch actually may have been that display impression. So by attributing 30 days later this conversion and giving some attribution to that display impression, because that was the first interaction that consumer had with the brand, is really what view-through attribution is about. And so that data is all based off of obviously the call data and then pixel data, so and cookie data, so that you can really understand down to the placement, down to the creative, down to the size, right? We've got all of these different ad sizes, but which one is driving the most view-through conversions. And so I always recommend then A/B testing so that you can see how one is doing versus the other, but you want to make sure that you're not just looking at view-through online conversions, but view-through call conversions as well.
And we also had someone ask basically kind of about the disruption that mobile advertising can have. I think especially display advertising can be seen as disruptive to the user experience. Do you feel like that's true, or like how do you compensate against that?
Yeah, so you know, there are ad blocking tools that people can put in place, but the usage of ad blocking tools has not really been high enough to where brands have had a lot of concern by it. I actually saw an article this morning that showed you know, a small percentage of people do implement ad blocking tools, but it's not to the point where brands are super concerned or seeing a big drop. I mean, obviously, looking at the data, right, more and more people are viewing display ads and engaging with display ads on their mobile device, and the spend is following. And so just those trends alone show that the ad blocking hasn't really become a huge concern now. It's definitely something to keep track of, but use your data. Use your performance metrics to really understand how your display ads are working, right? So click-through rate still is something to take a look at in display, and engagement rate, and view-through conversion, and the view-through conversion rate, because you really want to understand if those ads are actually driving somebody to convert, even if it is later down the road, but you want to devote your budget to really what's working. And there's going to be some stuff that doesn't work. We all have that in our search campaigns, in our display campaigns, and we re-strategize. But how do we re-strategize? It's really based on the data. So my really big suggestion here is just make sure that you have the full picture, and that whenever you're making decisions based on all the data. And mobile phones are driving mobile conversions, which includes calls. So the more you spend on your mobile, just make sure you're measuring the full impact.
Great, thank you. So we had one more person that was impressed that you could do click-to-call from a display ad. They didn't know that. But they asked, what have you found is most important in click-to-call display ads? Is it the messaging? Is it the targeting? Is it the creative?
Oh, I would say. So we've been testing click-to-call for a little bit of time, and honestly, I'm always trying to outdo myself, right? Like you always want to improve your optimization month over month. And so what I'm finding though is that the strongest quality of calls were coming from retargeting, right? Because they've been introduced to our brand before. So they're a little bit further down the funnel. We got quite a bit of calls from prospecting, so I was obviously spending money there. But once I went in to listen to those calls, the quality just wasn't nearly as strong. So even though the numbers look like they were driving a lot of volume, it wasn't the quality that I was looking for, right? So I just refocused my budget, and now I'm doing as much retargeting as I can. And I am working to switch up the creative. We're doing some additional testing with it, but I would say all of it, to be honest with you. But for our campaigns, retargeting has been the strongest.
Great. I think that's pretty much all the questions that we have right now. Thank you everybody for coming and listening and attending. We had a couple of questions just about if the presentation will be available, and we will be following up with an email with a recording of the presentation, so please look for that. And then feel free, like Kelly said, to reach out to us if you have any questions about dialogue text for display, what we talked about today, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.